Quorum.
You have to wait till you see us
Okay.
up on the comment.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Recognizing a quorum, the chair opens the February 10th, 2024 meeting of the Community Housing Committee. This meeting is being held in a hybrid model, both in person in the hearing room of the Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, and remotely via the virtual computer platform Zoom. Committee members may participate in person or through remote participation pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 and Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, and extended through March 31, 2025. The information to access this meeting via Zoom was published on the agenda with the town clerk and on the town's website with a minimum 48-hour notice to the public. Public is welcome to attend in person or remotely. This meeting is being recorded.
Well done, Mr. Chairman.
I second that.
Okay, and I think you have to take a roll call vote for who's present.
To open the meeting.
Yep.
Lee?
Here.
Drew?
Here.
Here.
Greg?
Here.
John? Here.
Okay.
First, committee business minutes.
Yep, there's none available right now.
Okay. Old business, muck housing update.
Yep. So, just a quick update. Staff met with the consultants from Barrett Planning. We went over our notes from our Muck 1, the brainstorming session. And while we were, and this was via Zoom, and while we were talking about it, the consultant was typing up. Remember, they were talking about doing a spreadsheet? And they were separating the ideas from our minimum criteria and our selection criteria, right? So the things that we absolutely had to have and the things that we kind of like to have. So your idea would be like a multifamily building, right? And your minimum criteria would be, there has to be rental. But your nice to like is, 25% affordable. So she was kind of sorting all these things out, and she had a vision of 3 big ideas. So she's still working on them. I was hoping to get something by email in time for this meeting, but no. They're also researching that whole thing about MassWorks, right? And so in the packet, and people that are zooming in, you should have gotten this in the email. I found some Cape Cod-based MassWorks. There's one in Brewster Woods, in Brewster. Yeah, that plan, that might have been reduced. That was linked in the internet. That third visual was linked to them, but. The next one is on Oak Bluffs. It's called Southern Tier. It's been in the newspaper a little bit because nearby there's a piece of property that the developer wants to put 100 units of affordable housing nearby. So it was just in
Yeah,
the
that's
Martha's Vineyard Times.
24 acres, I think.
Yep. And it's all housing. This is different. The Southern Tier is like a town-sponsored plan, and you can see it has a nicer layout. It's got more green. It's got some nice architecture. And then there's Massaquoi Commons in Edgartown. Looks like the engineer is, the architect is the same for both of those. And again, a nice site design. So it's just something for you to think about that, MassWorks will fund these kind of things. The last one is Mashpee Commons. That was in 2014. There's not a lot about it on MassWorks site. And I had to go to Google because I know where, I live in Mashpee, so I know where the top of the shop housing is. So on that picture, the bottom floor is commercial. It's like coffee shops, places to get your hair done, that kind of stuff. And the top 2 levels are housing. 25% is affordable, it's all rental. And that was modular. Those pieces of those buildings came in prefabbed, and they put them together like a Tetris puzzle by crane. But there is a map of Mashpee Commons. It's the
Can I interrupt for a second? Why would they do modular? Wouldn't that be more expensive?
they priced it out, and it was less
Really?
expensive. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But that site is 180 acres in total.
Yep.
So it's got a lot more to kind of play with. But that was something, MassWorks paid for some of the infrastructure and the street and the curbing, and it was kind of weird because it was built so long ago. The curbing is there, but there's no, the development hasn't caught up to that infrastructure. So,
Which way is the development, the next phase of Mashpee Commons going?
it's gonna go
Toward
across, towards the church,
Okay,
towards, Deer Crossing. Yeah, towards Falmouth. So it's Job's Whiting and Job's Fishing, right? On one side is the library and the built commons as you know today. And on the other side, there's forested land. And that's where it's gonna go. And it goes all behind Homemeyer, there's an affordable housing building there. And then there's the Christ the King Church. The land all behind that will be developed too.
so the southern tier, I looked up the web address that was on here, and southern tier is like 7.8 acres. And so it comes out to about 7.7 units per acre in that development. And then the one in Edgartown was a lower density of about 4.7 units per acre.
Yeah, so it just gives you kind of an idea that MassWorks will fund something in that density range. Now, whether you have to wait a while and keep applying again and again, until, like, okay, we'll finally fund you. Or the other thing is, with Mashpee Commons, you can put that, at that point, they were granting money for infrastructure that wouldn't be built, the affordable units weren't getting built until much later. So whether they've changed that or not, it does show you that they have some flexibility. When I went off Cape and looked at MassWorks things, it was definitely more density. There was a lot of revitalization areas. So maybe you get points if you're developing a previously disturbed site. But it looks like you definitely get points if you're in a site that has blight. You know what I mean?
Good.
So, so that would be a competitive issue for us. But, we're redeveloping a site, but it's not blight. You know what I mean? It's not like, When I went to look at things that were 40R, I didn't want to print out those pictures. I didn't think that you would like those pictures. They were like even more dense than the MassWorks ones. Real urban, but on the other hand, 40R, it's been challenging for towns to tap into 40R down here. That might be part of it too. Like,
Why is that?
we always just felt it was too difficult. The amount of money that we could get, it was just too difficult. But we now have staff people that have been successful in doing 40R in other communities, off-Cape communities. And so they're saying, yes, we can do it. We just have to be careful with, what kind of density we want. So,
Quick question, Mary. This picture here, that's part of the Egerton project?
yeah, I think it's after.
This one here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I assumed because of the way it's set up, but it didn't seem to fit with the,
That was from their website. I know, that was from their website.
yeah, I like that.
I didn't spend a lot of time, like, I didn't call these places up and, yeah, I
It doesn't
thought-
look like an apartment building, you know what I mean? It looks like a house.
Right, so, I mean, when you go to the Brewster Woods website, this bottom picture is done professionally, you know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of the angles, it looks a little flat. When you get to the architecture that's on the island, it's superior, and you're seeing more and more architects dibble and dabble in multifamily buildings that look like
Yeah.
single family.
And I like that look.
You know? So I think we have a choice. Even Yarmouth Gardens, if you stop across the street and look at it, I remember many conversations, and Kathy was in the room, and how they really wanted to make it look like two single-family homes.
No, I think Yarmouth Gardens is done quite well.
Yeah. And if you're going by and not staring at, yeah, it does look like two homes. You know what I mean? But that's what the architect was aiming for. Of course, it's multifamily housing. But you see how there's like one door on the front
Yeah.
on each, so.
Like I said, I like that look.
Yeah. So that kind of gives you a sense of the things that you can do for MassWorks. So MassWorks is definitely something that we should look at. I did get an email Friday from the consultant from Barrett Planning Group, and they are looking at the MassWorks website in more detail to chart it out.
So when you get the email from them, are you going to distribute it to the committee, or?
I could, as long as you guys don't respond back.
Yeah.
No deliberation. And it might not come to anything significant until the 24th.
Okay.
I mean, the trust meets on the 18th.
And the 24th, is that a joint meeting again?
Yeah, that's a big meeting.
Okay.
The trust meets on the 18th. If you feel that there's something significant from the consultant that you want to convene this committee, we can do that. I was hoping to have a little bit more for you today. I was hoping to have those big three ideas that they were working on. I mean, obviously, one of them is like what you're seeing in front of you.
I mean, I'm glad they're not rushing.
Okay.
Do it right. You know what I mean? This is a once-in-a-generation
Yeah.
situation. There's no need to rush it. Let's get it right, you know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
fast.
And that second reconciliation meeting we have plenty of time. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we need more time than just one meeting on that, we can bump that to the next meeting or schedule another one. I think one thing that Kathy suggested, which I didn't get to, was to kind of take some of these developments, including Yarmouth Commons and Yarmouth Gardens, print them out to the scale of the map that they gave us. and have it so that you could kind of place it on it and move it around.
That would be pretty helpful to see
think
what.
that would
Yeah,
be? Okay.
absolutely.
All right. No. I do know that the school is getting serious about participating in the capital improvement planning for the site. So you might see something from them about getting money to do a study of the site to, for a new school, for a new elementary
We're
school.
putting a new elementary on that site.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting where they choose.
They wouldn't stay in the same location?
Well, it can't. Well, they don't like to do that because then they have to, where are they going to put the kids in the interim?
Right.
Okay.
Oh, there's room enough to, on the back of the site to, I think, build a new school on the back of the site and leave the existing school in place. It looked like it, anyway.
Yeah.
That it?
Yeah, that's all I have. I don't know if you guys wanted to kind of open it up for discussion about how you thought the meeting went, and if you had any one idea that you liked after hearing everybody else's.
Is there, I was wondering if there was any feedback or any, do you have any reactions from the other committees that are looking at the site as well, like recreation and?
Recreation's meeting tomorrow, or Wednesday rather, at 6 o'clock at the DPW. So they haven't had their first one yet.
Okay, okay.
So we're kind of ahead of the curve?
Yes.
Look at that, okay. I thought, look, there weren't any bad ideas, except for the idiot who wanted the petting zoo.
That was you.
I like John's idea, not just because he's sitting right here, but just like a little community within the community, you know what I mean? A little bit of everything in there. I thought that was a fantastic idea.
I think everybody was pretty comfortable, except for one resident, about having housing on the site. So I thought that right there is kind of like a big deal.
One resident,
I mean,
really?
yeah, we are the muck housing people, but still,
One person.
there was one gentleman in the audience.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
I thought you meant like community-wide, that there
He
was
had-
no
He had
pushback.
boyhood remembrances
Right.
of the school and,
Yeah. I also
and
think
and there, is there any update on when we're gonna see the condition of the building,
no.
the report on that?
We have Sharon Weimer here from Muck.
The draft is coming up, so we had a peek at the draft, so that information will be coming forward. Our next scheduled meeting is not until March 12th. I'm not sure whether we'll be fitting another one in. Bill is quite busy with libraries and warrants and the whole thing, but we also will be hiring our consultant down the road here. So we're trying to kind of match our meetings with the different functions that we have. But I can tell you that there were 2 bids received for the consultant.
Oh, great,
So we do have a couple people to choose from.
great.
And as I said, the beginning part is, it's gonna be an interesting process. And you guys are our stars, because you've done this so.
The microphone, please. Sorry.
Yeah. Do I do something special with that?
Talk into it, screen.
Yeah, I think this started with the question of, I'm sorry,
So we wanted to know if there was any word on what other
The con-
committees are doing.
I'm sorry, yeah,
The building study,
yeah.
and,
So we had a peek at a draft. of the building condition report that's being handed in. And our next meeting, I assume it will be finalized. They are checking with various people within the DPW and about all the aspects of the report. The second thing is our next scheduled meeting isn't until March 12th, I believe it is. And we hope maybe we'll have a meeting beforehand, but it would involve the consultant. We did receive 2 bids, so there are 2 consultant bids to be our consultant. And what else
You
can
have
I
to,
tell
you have to interview them and get,
Right.
you know, and ask them your
select them,
questions. Yep.
right. So we are kind of moving gently behind you, doing various things, and it's always meant to be concurrently to do many things. As you've indicated, the schools are trying to do their thing, and we're trying to move through this. And my opinion is I hope to get many good ideas, and you've started out great as a committee, I think. So you should be applauded for everything you've done, and Mary in particular, for getting a grant and having the kind of meeting that you had to begin with, so
Right. Thank you.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure
thanks.
if that answers all your questions, because
I just had one quick question on the condition study. Are they looking at the gymnasium and the auditorium piece separate from the school, or is it, are we,
it's part of the process.
they're looking at each piece of the.
Right, right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, in terms of how it can be developed and kind of the expense of it all, so.
The other thing I kind of took away was that, you know, if you can ask for any type of housing you want, right? Whether it's Soldier On or Towers to Tunnels or, you know, light tech affordable units, and it's better to push whatever you want now, that type of housing you want now. That way, everybody that's going to use the site and live on the site knows what's coming down the pike. So some of the housing that we've talked about are for people that really need some services, right? They need some services. But I think that if we start with them as the base for the housing, then, you know what I mean? Like, then everybody else coming in, they already know what's there. Because people don't have to move if they don't want to. You know what I mean? So, the other thing I think might be important is phases, is phasing stuff. We don't have to do everything all at once. And I'm finding that, you know, our affordable housing projects that we approve and fund, they end up on a different timeline than we first anticipated. So it moves along.
Most things do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. So that's all I have.
Okay. Affordable housing standards.
Yep, so these were approved way back as Board of Selectmen policy, Select Board policy, so I'm going to submit a memo. If there's no other comments on them.
I have a couple questions. In terms of affordability, the last sentence. A project proponent may petition the town to convert an affordable rental project to an affordable ownership project 15 years after recording of the original affordable rental housing restriction. Does that mean the tenant lives in that apartment for 15 years and then is eligible to buy it?
The developer or the owner of the building can, after 15 years, petition to like condominiumize.
Oh, I see, okay, I got you.
So still, 25% have to be affordable. And if somebody's going to get relocated, right, there has to be a relocation plan.
So I live in that apartment, the owner says, I'm gonna turn this into a condo. He can't just evict me or say, you're out, I'm not renewing your lease, he's gotta,
Probably the first thing that would happen is that we would give housing counseling to that tenant and see if they could take over a mortgage.
that makes sense.
Right.
Second question I had was, out-year affordability of rents and condominium fees. What's an out-year?
Yeah, I was wondering
Oh,
the same
sorry.
thing.
I don't know how else to say it.
I've never heard that expression. an
Yeah,
out-year.
we use it here, but it just means in the future.
Okay. I thought it was like, okay, we're taking a year off from renting this apartment.
Yeah.
I should change that word. Yeah. See, in the sentence, in out years, comma, that
In out
usually
years,
people.
In
ca-
Alberta, right, in Alberta, okay. Out years.
The one thing, when I was looking at the accessible units section,
Oh, okay.
instead of maybe, we kind of go back and forth on this because it's sort of like, is there a tenant that needs a fully accessible living unit on the list of potential renters? And so I was thinking, instead of maybe making accessible units, I think in the fair housing guidelines, and Kathy, you may know about this as well, what they do is they build the units so it's easily accessible. It's easily modified to be accessible.
Sometimes it's called visitable.
Yeah, yeah. And so that means that they put blocking in the walls in the bathroom that you could then put grab bars in if you needed them, that sort of thing. So I don't know if we want to rephrase that at all, or if we want to stick with creating accessible units.
I would keep it the way it is. And then when you have plans in front of you, right? Then they might say, oh, that's too much of an expense. And then you can negotiate, because this is just policy, this is not a
Right.
bylaw, right?
Yep.
So then you can say, well, okay, how about universal or visitable? You know what I mean? Something that can be adapted easily in the future.
Isn't there a number of apartments if you're a building that you have to build an accessible unit?
What we've seen so far in our program has not triggered that.
So if you're building something that's 100 units, you don't
That would trigger it.
have to. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
The number that triggers it,
So-
I don't know what it is, but,
So like Yarmouth Commons has a 3-story building. And so for the money that they were going for with the state, it triggered an elevator.
I mean, I would like to see more accessible housing. I would like to see anything that's being built to have it. If you don't need it, you can always rent it to someone who doesn't need an accessible unit, but you know it's there for future use if you do need it. We did it a lot. We would rent out, I know I've had this conversation with you. We'd have one on each floor of like an 11-story building. It was usually someone who didn't need it, who went in there, and of course, after you filled the building, someone came in and said, hey, I need an accessible unit. But it's just, it's nice to know they're there.
So I think that for the 2 addresses that we looked at that were, private developments and weren't taking any subsidy, I think if they had known we were looking for, on one of them, the one with the 8 units in a row, I think if they knew that we were looking for an accessible unit, like that was really important to us, I think one of the end units would have become at least a first floor living, right? Like, maybe it would have been a studio on the first floor, and I don't know what on the second floor, but for the other one, that it was all top of the shop housing, like that,
There's only so much you can do there.
there's only so much you can do that, right? I mean, if they put in enough units to trigger something else, then they'd have to supply that accessibility. But that really didn't even, that building didn't even feel like you should have even 1 unit on the first floor as an accessible unit. It just didn't feel right.
Going with the restaurant supply on the
Yeah,
bottom?
the restaurant supply, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it certainly wasn't, there wasn't green space or anything conducive to attracting you outside. It was parking around a building and units up above.
Yeah, so. Yeah, so, I mean, the only thing I can think of is it's a little bit, well, it's on the second page. But I could put in that top summary, something about, these were revised in 225 to encourage accessible units. Like, maybe I can fit that into the top paragraph, so that when developers first look at this, it's in the top paragraph.
I would think that most developers would have that on their mind anyway.
And we don't want to require it, because that would have been a problem at the property that's mixed use with the top of the shop.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to scare
Well,
anybody
any
away,
top
but if we
shop
can squeeze it
housing
in
is-
when we can, I think it's important. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't interrupt you.
Yep.
Do you think I should just leave it where it's placed?
And
It's on the second page. It's in,
I should probably know this, but, but I don't. On the breakdown of square footage for the units, section 404 zoning bylaw,
that's just, what's 404? Is that a, no,
Hotel.
it's hotel,
Yeah, HMOD one.
motel.
oh, that's conversion of a hotel?
We don't allow conversion anymore, because what we were finding is we weren't getting functional living units, trying to
Yep.
do them in those long, narrow row. So it would be raise and replace. There's a lot of benefits to hotel properties, because you get the increased density, you're also most of them are part of the growth incentive zone, so you don't have to go through the Cape Cod Commission's DRI process, so there's a lot of benefits to it.
Not doing it anymore.
No, we're doing it for raise and replace, not for renovating the existing structure.
Okay.
We got a lot of like really, interesting proposals at first when the motel bylaw was passed, where properties that were kind of already being used for year-round housing, they converted. And then there became a time when the proposals really weren't that great. So we decided to take that part of the bylaw out. And that's what you do with zoning, right? If you're not getting anything good from that zoning, and it was meant to incentivize a certain style, and it's now going in a different direction, you can just go to town meeting and take it out. Some people put a sunset clause in, kind of like experimental zoning bylaws, right? To make sure that happens, But that worked out really well, because just when it was that part of the bylaw was starting to kind of not produce something that was really that great, it was gone. And the properties that were kind of left really needed to be raised and replaced.
Yeah, well, the problem with older motel stock like that is that the unit size is so small to begin with. It's not like a modern hotel is 325, 350 square feet.
Right.
And these were probably talking 200 square feet. So even when you gang 3 rooms together, you really only have a studio out of the, so.
Can we check with the people that are online if they have any comments? Drew?
I'm
Pam?
listening. I don't have a comment right at the moment.
Lee, Palm, do either of you have comments?
No comments.
No.
Okay.
All right.
New business soldier on site visit?
Yeah, so, I don't know if it's been so difficult to get I was thinking of seeing what they have on their calendar for this time of year. They might have some type of, I don't know, open house day they do every year at these places. I don't know. I was thinking, rather than us kind of trying to schedule something, just see what's on their calendar, see if they have any events. The other thing is, I don't know if, Greg, you were able to contact Towers to Tunnels?
I didn't, I can certainly do that.
Yeah.
I mean, is this viable? I don't want to get them all excited that we're reaching out to them and
All
then,
you have to say is that their name, that you suggested their name during this process, and see if they have a local contact. And the other thing I was thinking is maybe it might be easier just to have Soldier On come down to us. Right?
well, that way we can't see what they,
It's
Well, they
true,
could do-
but
they
it's
could do a
been, it's been
PowerPoint or
so,
something.
I have just been having such terrible luck.
They could do a PowerPoint or something like that and, you know, showing the room. I mean, I don't think what we're going to find when we go up there is something that is the building is transferable down here necessarily.
Right.
So, it's more understanding kind of what the physical attributes are that they're looking for, you know, that they build into each of their buildings. Would be interesting to know, just from a standpoint of, when we have a site, you know, are they interested in something? How many units does it have to be for them to have interest?
Okay.
That sort of thing.
See, I'm thinking it might be
This
more
is Drew.
productive. Hi, Drew.
Hi, so, I would like Soldier On to come to Yarmouth, yeah, because to see if they might be, appropriate for this muck for the Matakees property. And, what were you saying earlier, Mary? Some people will need services who would live here and housing on the Matakees property, and it would be good to have that lined up first or something. Could you go over that again?
So what I find is that, what I find is people who need services, right? Who, you know,
Right.
might be coming out of transitional.
Like the people that would live in a Soldier On
Right.
project, for
Right.
example.
That if you start with that part,
Yes,
that as phase one, right? Then everybody else coming in already knows it's there.
right.
So, for example, we were very concerned about, one of the concerns in the community for reusing the high school, the John Simpkins High School for
Right.
housing, was that we had the Seaside Festival there every year.
Yes, yep,
And there was a real concern that the residents would then try, as abutters, try to stop that festival from going on every year. I mean, it takes over that place, right? And so I said, no, what we'll do is during the lottery and lease up, is that we are very clear with everybody that applies for the units, and everybody who gets in the lottery and looks at, knows that every year there's a big festival. So you let them know what the site is all about ahead of time, and then they can choose whether they want to go there or not. I mean, there is nothing wrong with having that property having multiple uses. So,
it should.
yeah. So instead of like starting with like, let's say we had different types of housing there. Instead of starting with the Habitat homes first, do you know what I mean? Maybe start with the Towers to Tunnels,
I'll be in touch with them tomorrow.
or, you know, the Soldier On first. Do you know what I mean? So they're like on
I
the
thought
site.
that's what you were getting at,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
I see that, and that's a good illustration about the Simpkins School, I get what you're saying, yeah.
Right. And with that little bit of extra education, there was never any problem, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Can I just take a step back? You just said something that kind of fascinated me about the tenants trying to put an end to the seaside. Can't you just put something in the lease that says, by the
No,
way?
not for affordable housing, you can't.
Really?
Yeah.
You couldn't put a clause in that
You
says,
couldn't
hey,
put an
on this
acknowledgement.
weekend, just so you know, this is happening and, wow, okay.
Right. Yeah, that would be what, but not with affordable housing. They're very strict about what can be in a lease.
Wow, okay, I didn't know that.
But we just let everybody know what that site was used for, so that they kind of knew what was going on before they got there. There was also this shared parking there for during the baseball season. And is
Sure,
it
there was
Little
some
League
turf
that's
battles
there?
over that, right, yeah, okay.
So that was something that we had to be very clear about, that there was going, no, the developer decided they were not going to have assigned parking, right? But everybody going in there was supposed to have been told that those back parking spots that are kind of gravelly, those are supposed to be for the baseball.
Tenants have a tendency to assign themselves their own
Right.
parking, and,
But the parking worked over there because it's 55 plus. So most households have only one car. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't need it later on. I'm hoping for that someday. I have 3 and it's killing me. So. Sound good, Drew?
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Well, I mean, one of the things that would, is they're going to, that we should think about for the muck site is, is there going to be some kind of a transportation hub there that connects somehow down to Route 28?
Right. So if you were to, like, let's say you were going to do senior housing, right? And very low income senior housing, and you're probably not going to get a lot of people with independence with respect to transportation. Well, the people that are going to manage that property need to kind of figure that out. So, for example, Soldier On, they buy a van. Do you know what I mean? We asked them that question, were there people that they help out that, don't have cars? They say, oh, no, everybody has a car, but we have a van too. They always make sure each of their facilities have a van. So yes, that's something that you can say coming in, you have to figure that out. And it might be them, calling our regional transportation authority and saying, what capacity do you have to come every morning, get a DART bus, come every morning, grab our people, and bring them around and bring them home at night? And they might say, well,
That might mean putting a covered bus stop on the property somewhere, yeah. Absolutely.
so, I mean, you, I don't think you'd ever get
A new route.
I don't think you'd ever get a new route,
No.
but
Dial the ride.
Yeah, there's style ride. There's a lot of options now. It just, the property needs to be set up for those people to have somewhere to be outside to pick up the bus. Absolutely.
we'll put that in one of those columns.
yeah, and that's a good idea, a covered bus, I mean, if you had to
We
go on
don't
the bus
forget it.
yesterday, right, with the snow or whatever, the rain,
Right.
so, yeah, that's a good idea.
So Greg and I will work on that and watch your email, because we might have another site visit.
All right.
Okay. Reports in action, Chair's report, I don't have anything. Home Consortium,
The meeting in January was canceled, I should say. The next meeting is next week.
So, also related to that, and I put it in under Home Consortium, I hope that's okay. The Regional Shared Housing Resources, so Barrett Planning is the county's housing specialist, and we're using those first 30 hours for muck housing stuff, right? That's how we, that program was using ARPA money, and that bit of money ends June 30th, 2025. So I'm going to put it on the agenda for the trust meeting, which is in mid-February, to extend that. So what would happen is, I think it's like $98,000 a year to run this program.
I think there's like a three-tiered option, depending on how many hours you use.
Right.
And how many towns
Subscribe to it.
subscribe. So the more towns, the less hours, the less it would be, I believe. And then the fewer towns and the more hours, the more expensive it would be. But we
So
got
my
5 months.
recommendation is going to be, because we feel we're going to continue to have a need for a housing consultant on this, and that this might, I don't want to bum you out, but it might go past June 30th, 2025, right? So my recommendation to the trust is to subscribe. They had the basic, which was basically a hotline, right? I have a housing problem, and plus they have office hours every other week, 2 hours every other week, right? And then they have special project consulting and then monitoring. I told them we probably would never use the monitoring hours, but we probably would use like 30 additional consulting hours. So I'm going to suggest to the trust that we go forward with that.
Okay, great.
Hopefully other towns do too.
I'm assuming this is very helpful to you.
This has, it really kicked in with this, yeah. The going every other week was good. Some of the stuff that they talked about, I kind of already knew, you know?
What don't you know, Mary?
Right. Right. But what it's done is it's brought all the staff members across the Cape that work on housing together. And it's kept everybody on track in a better way. Do you know what I mean?
Is that the only opportunity you've had for everybody to get together that does what you do?
The Home Consortium was doing that for us. But now that they have a consultant, you know, convening all the housing staff people every other week, the Home Consortium doesn't need to put that on their agenda anymore. So Renee Hammond from the county was already doing that, but now that's kind of shifted to this project, this shared housing office. And I have to say that the Cape Cod Commission is updating its regional policy plan, and they had a focus group on housing, and they invited all the housing staff from across the Cape. And it was a more cohesive group, because we've been meeting with each other every other Tuesday, you know? So we kind of, nobody was shy in speaking at that meeting, because they were all comfortable with each other. So right then and there, I was like, oh, that's because we've been on those calls or those Zooms every other week. So I would say, yes, it's been very helpful. You don't want to have an expert just in one town, because guess what will happen? All your affordable housing will go to that one town. You want to spread the love, right, region-wide. It's good to kind of work out those regional issues too, because some places feel that they have these huge barriers to developing affordable housing. Like, I have no land. Well, there's ways to get around that. We have water issues. Well, there's ways to get around that. So it's good to get the group together to talk those out, what's working on the Cape.
Okay, Yarmouth Housing Authority, Drew?
The Yarmouth Housing Authority meets tomorrow, and we are going to issue a RFP for the land we own on Forest Road on the first week of March. And I was interested to see the MassWorks things that Mary shared with us, because like that, the density is similar in our idea there for Forest Road, like 50 units in our case, on a similar amount of acres, I would say. Out of the 19 acres of that land, we would use less than half of it is the idea, I think. But that's up to the developer. That's me. That's it.
Drew, can I ask a question? When you say, you would only be using half of that land, would so the rest of the land would remain green or undeveloped?
The development wouldn't, no, it wouldn't cover all that 19 acres of land, no. Not even close. That's the way we're thinking of it, yeah.
Thank you.
If you look at that, I'll show you the RFP.
Oh,
Send
great,
it
Yeah,
to
I'd
thank
be
you.
interested in seeing that as well.
Yeah, the
good.
number
All right.
of bedrooms, number of bedrooms is, like, they figured out what kind of wastewater treatment facility they wanted on the site. Then they back calculated the number of bedrooms, and then they're back calculating the number of units.
Right.
what I mean?
Bedrooms would be at 90, I believe.
So one of my first public comments on this, and I will see if it's in the RFP or not, but is to kind of cluster everything together.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of land there. Don't spread it all out for two
Right.
reasons. You might want to save some trees, and two, if that area ever gets sewered, right, you would still have building capacity on the site. Now, I'm talking like decades down the road.
That is true. But I'll email you copies of the request for proposals.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
email it to me, and I'll pass it on to the
Okay.
committee.
All right. Very good.
Okay, Affordable Housing Trust.
So the trust meets on the 18th. Like I said, on the agenda is this funding for the Regional Shared Housing Office. Also, they issued an RFP for $500,000 for, it's basically for the acquisition of land for the development of affordable rental housing. So it went out to people who have responded to such RFPs in the past. I have the understanding that one developer we're going to get at least one response. So they let me know they're expressing it overnight. So heads up, so for me to watch for it. So anyway, so that's good news. And there's a priority for redeveloping something that's underutilized or blighted into mixed-use development, focusing in on places that are going to get sewered. So you're seeing, hopefully, we get a village center kind of development on Route 28. So that's the big news there.
Okay. Planning Board?
I think that the big news was the LCP. You want to just give us a real brief, I don't want to put you on the spot, Kathy, but I'm
Okay.
sure you can do this.
That's okay. Yeah, we had a LCP community meeting on January 29th. It was very well attended. We were very, very happy. Got a lot of new and kind of different ideas that we hadn't really thought about. We really concentrated on 4 categories: the economy, land use, housing, and then also coastal resiliency and sustainability. I think some of the other categories we'd gotten a lot of really good information already on, so we were concentrating on those. So we're going to be summarizing all of that and putting it up on the website so people can see that. And that will help us to inform as we come up with different action items to include in the local comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
Climate resiliency and what?
Coastal resiliency
Coastal.
and sustainability.
And sustainability, thank you.
Community Preservation Committee.
Hi, Lee, any update around the CPC?
We met last Wednesday and we're meeting again this Wednesday to finalize our warrants. And you probably all know that the Affordable Housing Trust, the committee approved an application for $620,000. And that will go before the town in the April town meeting. Homeless, I'm trying to remember the name of the project, Council of Churches, Hands of Hope Outreach Center was awarded $40,000. Well, we approved an application for $40,000 for them to provide services to Yarmouth residents. And that's usually prevention, help with rent, and so forth. And that money solely goes for Yarmouth residents. They serve a couple of different towns. So we talked about how we'll be presenting the warrants, and we're discussing that further. Probably, we're agreeing that the representatives for particular areas will present, like I'll present the 2 applications for housing. And that's what we've done in the past. So that's all I can think of as an update.
And Lee, as backup, right? Bob Lawton can answer any questions on the trust article.
Correct.
And I think what happens is Catherine Driscoll, who's executive director of Hands of Hope, is invited to attend town meeting in case there are questions.
And I'm pretty familiar with their program.
Good.
I'd rather have Bob Lawton back up for the Affordable Housing Trust if
Yeah.
needed. But usually that's the format. Usually there's somebody there to answer any in-depth questions.
Okay.
Okay. Department of Community Development?
It's kind of like a catch-all, but I think we're. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering,
That's where I was gonna fit it in. Okay.
that's why we have this?
Yeah, or the trust. I guess I could have fit it under the trust. So, I don't have the letter with me, but you guys, oh, here it is. Okay. So this Wednesday, the 12th, at 5 o'clock, Habitat is hosting a neighborhood meeting for the proposed development of 6 homes at 1211 Route 28 in South Yarmouth.
Right across the
Yeah.
street.
So.
Visited this site a couple of months ago, right? Yeah.
And kudos to Habitat for figuring out some legalese stuff, because it was one parcel split into two, and it was like a condominium, and there was promised improvements to the site that weren't getting done, but Habitat solved everything. And so onward, they feel that they can build 6 units there. Again, they've sent this letter to all the abutters, just like a nice little letter saying exactly what's going on, and also some elevations of the 6 units. So those things, these things, change as things get engineered out and stuff like that. But we're pretty comfortable that these are the homes that are going to be on the site. So when I think I told you, when we had site plan review, we had our town engineer and we had our water engineer. And they advised Habitat to wait for this area to be sewered.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have a Title V system, an expensive Title V system that would only be functioning for 12 to 18 months. So why don't we wait? So it is going to get pushed back. But we're very happy that Habitat is involving the neighborhood now, so we can get everybody's input on this as we go forward.
Mary,
I think Myra might be coming to this. You guys don't have to come if you don't want, but.
But for this meeting?
Yeah, you don't have to come if you don't want to. You're welcome to.
When and where again?
It's Wednesday at 5.
Mary, what is this in the middle?
That square thing was the proposed wastewater
Treatment,
treatment facility.
I found this on the
So
web.
that'll go away, but the
That will go
cul-de-sac
away.
will still remain, and
And it will get an address, a Wood Road address. We just haven't heard that yet. And they're working with the town to make sure that sewer line goes up Wood Road. So, it does? Okay. And of great interest is the 1-bedroom right along Route 28. Because that's a new, let's see which one it is. It might be the last page.
Are there any plans, the building next door that's derelict at this point, any plans that that's going to go away?
So, maybe. So isn't there a little drive in case that ever happens?
Yeah, there's a future drive that's showing on the plan, so.
Yep. So a couple of interesting things with the abutters. They have not had success connecting with the owner of that property. They're having staff changes. Beth Wade is moving on to, I think, the Conservation Compact, the Compact of Conservation Trusts of Cape Cod. But they've already hired her replacement, so I think the newbie is gonna come on Wednesday. And so we'll see. There might be an emphasis with a new staff person to kind of hunt down that contact. But now we have plenty of time, right?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be permitted 2025, and now that's going to be pushed off at least 12 months, because it's going to be a comp permit, and those are only good for 2 years, so they have to time it correct with their construction schedule. And the other spot that's kind of funky is the bottom piece that says existing building. There was an encroachment there. So I think they're working out, see, there's an exclusive use easement line. That's what that's about. There was some hardscape put in by that abutter who didn't, properly respect that property line. Maybe didn't know about it, I don't know. But what's nice is that Habitat's like, oh, we don't want to make our neighbor have to move their hardscape. I guess there's a nice little spot with a fire pit and everything. So, so I'm hoping that those people come to the meeting. So, and tell everybody how nice Habitat's already been. So.
Okay,
And that's it.
that's it.
Me.
No, we have affordable housing lottery that you put on our,
Yes.
and then the block grant.
So just today, you got by email a public notice of our public hearing. We're having 2 plus a focus group meeting on our community development block grant. The town gets about $128,000 a year from US HUD. It's an entitlement. And we're just about to explore our 5-year, update our 5-year action plan. And part of that is a 1-year action plan. So that's the notice. The public hearing number 1 is February 25th at 3 p.m. here in Town Hall at the hearing room. And the public hearing number 2 is 2 days later, February 27th at 6 p.m. And that's also a focus group meeting. So public hearings, usually you say, okay, here's the program, blah, 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 blah. What do you think? Right? You hear what people. On the 27th, we're going to start with that, but then ask some questions, leading questions for people, and heavily invite on the 27th people who work in the community on housing and food security and community health, public health, that kind of stuff. So we'll reach out to the hospital, see if they'll send somebody. That happened 5 years ago, and that's how we found out that Medicaid was supplying money for transportation for Medicaid patients. Yeah. And that Medicaid was going to make it so that you couldn't, if you had somebody in a facility and they didn't have secure housing, Medicaid was supposed to help with that. And Elder Services and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts really picked up that gauntlet, whatever. And right now, there's this program that's the money follows you. So I'm working with a person who is in a medical facility who's ready, right, to come to an affordable unit. They've kind of bubbled up to the top of the list, and they're going to use some of this money follows you towards their first and last month's rent, moving costs, we're hoping furniture. So there's some stuff going on, so. And also, yes, at your seat, there is a flyer, it's double-sided. What we have, the Cape Cod Ready Renter Program has an affordable housing lottery for a one-bedroom affordable unit at 530 Main Street in West Dennis. And the rent is $1,606 a month, utilities not included. So it's in partnership with the town of Dennis. It's an affordable unit, and the Affordable Housing Trust runs the Ready Renter Program. It's lottery services for scattered site units like this. A lottery unit usually costs anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000, and it doesn't matter how many units you have. That's what big lottery companies charge. So what the trust does is it subsidizes that with my time and a consultant with the Plymouth. We have a contract with the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority, and we're able to do it for much less for developers in other towns, and for far less for developers located in Yarmouth. Then on the backside is the Ready Renter wait list. So the nice thing about the Ready Renter program is after you do your initial lottery, you're supposed to get that list becomes your wait list, but it expires in 2 years. Then what do? Well, technically, you have to hold another whole lottery again. So what we do is we've convinced the state to let us have one general wait list after that 2-year period, to start using one big general wait list for everybody, and that's what that is. So that's, we're about to purge everybody on the list. We take care of we use that list for about 70 units Cape-wide. You have to reapply, or you can apply if you're not on the list right now. We hold another whole lottery, we shake it all up, give everybody a fresh chance on the lottery, and so that's the notice for that. So if, wherever you go, put a poster up. And if you know somebody that's looking for affordable housing, send them to me, and I can send them the application. It runs through April 9th, so they do have an ample amount of time to apply.
Can I ask a quick question on that list? So people apply for that once, and then they can sit on it for years and years and years?
Not with us, not
They
with
have to
this one.
reapply?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, right, so there are programs that are like that. You apply and you're there on that list. And once in a while, it's usually like the CHAMP list, right, which is all the public housing on the Cape. Once in a while, they'll contact you and say, are you still interested in being on the list? And if you send back, say, yes, I am, you don't lose your spot. Other people might fall off because they've moved, or they didn't update their contact information. And so I think that was kind of like past practice, and that's just what's going to happen with that. And that's what people call like the Section 8 list. I've been on the Section 8 list for years, right? These are local action units, so they're a little bit different. When the address comes up originally, we have to have a fresh lottery for that address. Every new address gets its own lottery. But after that, we can combine the wait list, and the wait list, again, it expires in 2 years, it's purged, and you have to reapply.
So they have to reapply every 2 years? Okay.
Yeah, they decided.
That's not unreasonable, I mean,
Right, and I have to tell you that I work on these lists, and they just get really stale. Like, people who are on the list, after 2 years, they've usually found something.
We had that problem. It's like you waste so much time trying to get through, and you 10 people, and you're like, they're all set, and you've wasted a lot of time, and
Yeah.
maybe that 11th person is waiting for the phone call,
Yeah.
and then they just fall
Right.
away.
Right.
Okay, upcoming meetings, MUC Housing Meeting Number 2, reconciliation is February 24th at 3 PM in the hearing room. And our next committee meeting is March 10th at 3 o'clock, I'm assuming, Marriott? Okay.
Yep.
And any other business?
Are they all at 3 o'clock? The three you've got here?
Yes. Yep, the only one that's at 2 is March 17th is your next muck. So it's February 24th at 3. March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day, is at 2.
That's right. And sobriety is required in that one? Okay.
We're getting out of here on time on that night.
Okay, any other business? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, roll call vote. Lee? Lee?
Aye.
Okay, Drew?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Aye.
And John, aye.
Okay, thank you.